This is the Surface 604 Colt. This particular bike has a medium-large frame, which will take somebody from about 5'8" up to 6'8", according to the spec sheet, which I have right here to be able to check to make sure I'm giving you all the right information. There's also a small to medium frame, which will handle people from 5'2" to about 5'7". Of course, you can change the seat post height here to accommodate that. It has a 500-watt hub drive motor with a torque sensor. The torque sensor, of course, is different than a cadence sensor because torque sensor will give you your motor thrust. It kicks in that motor that is commensurate with how the kind of pressure that you're putting down on the pedals. You'll notice that it has this really interesting sort of top tube. It has a nice straddle height. So I think it's designed for somebody who is even 5'2", if they're on this bike, to be able to straddle this above their crotch. I mean, they might have to get on their tiptoes a little bit, but just in case they have to get off the bike quickly. It's always nice to have that clearance. It's got Tektro disc brakes, hydraulic disc brakes, which I really recommend hydraulic disc brakes if you can ever get them over regular manual cable type brakes. They're just so much more responsive. 180mm rotors on the front and back. Got these nice little grippy metal pegs right here on the pedals that are good for, I'm just wearing my Brooks Cascadia running shoes, and this really digs into the lugs on here really well. It gives me a nice firm grip. The battery is a 672 watt-hour battery. Now I rode this thing for about 27 miles yesterday, and I was gone for maybe a couple of hours on and off, riding, stopping, and that sort of thing. And I wasn't even down to 50% on the battery. So it's got a pretty good battery life. It has 5 levels of pedal assist, including 0, which makes 6 if you want to ride it just as a regular bicycle. They're located right here on the handlebars. I wish that the pedal assist levels were a little bit closer to where I'm gripping these hand grips here, because I have to reach over and it's just kind of distracting. You need a long thumb to press them, and plus they're not real visible. They're dark letters on a dark background. They're raised, but I wish they were like contrasting colors. The display is right here in the middle, which it's a color display, really easy to see. It's going to show you your miles per hour. It's going to show your the amount of miles ridden. It's also going to show your pedal assist. All in all, I think the Surface 604 Colt is an excellent commuter bike. Shifting is real smooth on the 9-speed derailleur. The 5 pedal assist levels work great. The shifters on this are SRAM, and so is the derailleur. And I've seen also on the newer, this is a 2021 model, I've seen on the 2022 on the spec sheet that they have Shimano derailleurs and Shimano shifters, though I'll bet you that might be actually a sort of a supply chain issue, to be honest. Now, this is a Class 2 bike. It'll go up to 20 miles an hour, has a throttle, but it's also can be unlocked to go up to 28 miles an hour. And I've tested it on the throttle right here on a straightaway, and I was able to get 28 miles an hour, which is, as far as I'm concerned, plenty fast. It has a very upright riding position. Some people really like that. Personally, I like to be a little bit further down. I wish there was a way that this had a bit more of a geometry, but more of an aggressive riding position. But a lot of that is because I like to really get off the bike and sort of pump with my feet on, with my butt off the seat. But with an electric bike, with the assistance levels that you get, you really hardly ever have to get off your seat. You can do everything from this seated position, which is probably why they have this kind of cruiser configuration. I like to keep it on pedal assist 1, like early in the rides, because I like to feel like I'm doing a little bit more myself, but inevitably as I get tired, I end up dialing up to maybe 3 or 4, especially on those hills. Now, one of the things I really like about this Surface 604 Colt, and it's also, the Rook is the same way, is this Suntour suspension fork. There's about 3 inches of travel, 80 millimeters or so. Not that you're going to need all that. This is not exactly a mountain bike. But this really takes out, even on asphalt, it takes out the little bumps and grinds, and it really, really helps on dirt roads. I live in Arizona, rural Arizona, so there's a lot of dirt roads. There's a lot of crappy asphalt roads and a lot of good asphalt roads. But having the Suntour suspension fork in front really works well. This doesn't have knobby tires. It's got street tires on it with a little bit of tread, but they're quite wide, I think 2.4 inches, 27.5-inch wheels. Now, the difference between the Rook and the Colt, I realized I'd actually rented the Rook to try that one out too, and I realized that they're basically exactly the same bike. The only difference that I can see, and I've looked at the spec sheet and compared both of them, is the top tube. The top tube on the Colt is obviously a lot more horizontal. It's meant as a step over, which means you can either do this, or like any bike, you can swing your leg over like that and straddle, whereas the Rook, this top tube is actually parallel to where the battery is. One of the things that a lot of people don't think about, and that I really like about having a top tube, is that with a top tube, you can sort of do this. I know it seems kind of minor, but I really like the top tube, if nothing else, just for that reason. It's got an aluminum frame, obviously fenders here for keeping the water and the mud and all that kind of stuff out. And it has this integrated rack that's actually welded to the frame. You can't even take this thing off. I don't know what the capacity of this thing, but it looks like it can hold some serious weight. In fact, the capacity of the bicycle itself is about 285 pounds. Electric bike frames in general are just so much stiffer and heavier than a regular bike, which is why this bike weighs in at about 58 pounds. Now with a bigger battery, this battery weighs about 7.5 pounds, I think. You can get a higher capacity battery that's going to be bigger with more capacity, but it'll also weigh about 10 pounds, so that'll boost this up another 3 pounds. So you've got to think about when you're loading an electric bike onto the back of a truck that you're going to have to really, it takes quite a bit of strength to get it up and over the tailgate in order to get it into a truck. So just something to think about. These are much heavier bikes, and especially most of the weight seems to be centered right here back here on the hub motor. It's quite heavy here in the back, but just lifting the whole bike up like so, and it's got some weight in the front too.